Hello, and welcome to another installment of The Partial Historians. I am the Radness.
I am Dr. Greenfield. Welcome.
Hello, Dr. Greenfield, Dr. G, as I like to call you. Are you ready to trace the history of Rome from the founding of the city by my side?
Boy, am I ever.
Excellent news. So, quick recap where we were up to last time.
Where even are we?
I believe, apart from our little blip where we talked about Livy, that we have been talking about the Fabii, the fabulous Fabii.
We have been deep in Fabian territory for a while now.
Yeah.
They've dominated the consulship for years at this point.
Yeah, they are patricians extraordinaire. So they have, at this point in our narrative, absconded from the city, but for the very legitimate purposes. They have basically got together their whole family clan, which we're including like clients and all that kind of stuff in there, and they have taken themselves off to defend the city against the evil Veii.
Yeah, they've gone and built a whole fortress right near Veii.
Yeah.
And be like, we're going to defend the frontier. Rome's finally realised that they have frontiers.
Yeah, yeah, and they are. If you look at it on a map, is actually not that far from the city of Rome.
No, we're talking small beans.
Yes, but in the grand narrative of this time, it would seem like a million miles away.
You got to march there. It's a real hassle.
Yeah, and our sources make it out to be like this uber battle that's happening between Veii and Rome. Which, to be fair, for the time, it does seem to have been the big rival in the area.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
Rome only has a couple of allies at this point.
Yes.
They've brought in, the Latins and the Venutii?
I think so, yeah. To be honest, it's been a long time since we have actually talked about the allies.
Yeah, but they've only got a couple of allies, and they're all coming from this reasonably, Latium area and slightly to the south. Yeah. And Veii is sitting slightly to the north.
Yeah.
And Rome seems to have now realised that Veii is just the touch point for a much broader northern conglomerate of peoples.
Yeah, because a long time ago now, but when we've talked about, Rome under the kings and that sort of thing, we have talked about these people who seem to have, well, we're not really sure exactly what happened, but it's possible that Rome was dominated for a while by people from the north, like the Etruscans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why they had these kings that were not native Romans.
Yeah, and we can see in some of the naming conventions
Yes.
of what become patrician Roman families that they're coming from Etruscan or Oscan language dialects.
Yes,
so it's not like Rome is like this pristine ethnic group.
No, Italy is definitely full of native peoples, all with their own cultural backgrounds. And so that's kind of what Rome is squaring off against at this point in time with Veii. That's what they're fighting for.
And boy, are they squaring off.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it was quite positive last time, for me anyway. Livy was fangirling all over the Fabii, saying
hello.
Because as much as we sort of cringe a little bit when we hear about the idea of a private army, an army that this fabulously wealthy family is able to fund themselves.
We are full of suspicion.
Yeah, we are full of suspicion. But for the Romans, this is the kind of stuff they expect their wealthy citizens to do because, they can afford it. They can do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. This is how social structures operate in Rome. And this is how you develop your prestige as a leading family.
Yes.
Being like, we have so much wealth that we can actually abscond our whole family clan, our whole gens, and take them north and look after the border for you.
It's something my students always really struggle with. They're like, so wait, they want to be politicians, but they don't get paid. I'm like,
yes.
Yeah. And why would you do that? Prestige?
Power, my friends.
Power,
pure
exactly. Yeah.
Power.
Yeah. Auctoritas, yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of where I was up to with Livy last time, him just going, oh my god, they're so amazing.
Yeah, Dionysius is probably less amazed. But boy, does he give me wealths of detail.
As per usual. I feel in a safe little bubble when Dionysius is giving you lots of detail.
I'm looking forward to when the tables turn. And I'd be like, look, I've only got a paragraph for this. You'd be like, 5 books later. We shall see.
Give it time, Dr. G. Give it time. All right, so where are you up to date-wise in your narrative at this point in time?
So we're just about to begin the year 477 BCE.
So you say.
So I say. Yes.
We are definitely in the 470s.
Yeah, we're somewhere in there. So again, we're always talking about dating. It is all a little bit over the place.
Yeah.
So Dionysius, for instance, connects the consulships of this year to the 76 Olympiad.
Always a handy dating mechanism.
Well, for his Greek audience.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, that year.
Yeah.
I remember the one where Scamander of Mytilene won the foot race.
4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4.
And if it times it by 4, okay, it's around about 475 BC.
Wait a second, that's an odd number.
Don't ask me how they managed it.
Okay, yeah. So we're definitely in the mid 470s, and
Yeah. So our consuls for this year: Gaius, Horatius, Pulvillus.
Wow.
Yeah, Pulvillus means small cushion, which I think is what a great name.
I really thought you were going somewhere after that for a second, and I was a bit worried. I was about to shield the mic.
No.
Small cushion.
Small cushion. Oh.
Interesting.
I wonder if it means he's got like a nice little belly that's good for hugs.
Or a bubble butt.
Oh.
Yeah. I like it, either way.
And his companion in the consulship, Titus, Menenius, Lanatus, which may sound familiar.
I was going to say, isn't there, I believe when we were talking about the first secession, wasn't there an Agrippa Menenius or Menenius Agrippa or something like that?
So this guy is the son of Agrippa Menenius.
Right, yeah.
And his father's famous for, in that first secession, giving the speech where he compares
the Roman state to the body.
Yeah, the patricians to the stomach and the plebs to all of the limbs.
Yeah.
And the limbs can't function without the stomach.
But you all need to do all of the work to feed the stomach.
Yes.
I hope the parable is clear.
Yeah, and now his son has risen to the consulship. Yes. Yay, Titus.
Yeah, cool. Keeping in the family. And Horatius, you say? So that would be perhaps a relative of the semi-mythical Horatius?
Well, maybe. I'm not sure about that one. Yeah. That's not something I've managed to nail down.
No, I don't think we could probably prove it either way, could we? I mean, it's just
But certainly from the same Ghent.
Yeah, it's interesting to note the family names. Now that we are actually getting somewhere in terms of the Republic.
We can start to see patterns of families.
We can actually see names repeating themselves. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm with you. So what does Dionysius say is happening in the Fabian world at this point in time?
Well, guess what? It's all about public land.
Oh, really? Land?
Right at the beginning of the year.
All right. Tell me what's happening.
The new consuls, they want to get their armies together because we know that there's some trouble on the frontier with Veii. So they're interested in getting on with that, but they can't in the beginning because of the continuing issue of the plebeians arguing for the redistribution of public land.
Yeah, definitely.
This has been going on for about 20 years now.
Yeah. Or longer.
Or even longer.
Yeah.
So there is that issue, which is sort of at the forefront at the start of the year, but it quickly turns out that the threat from the north, from the Tyrrhenians, this sort of motley group that includes Veii, propels the armies to get their act together, essentially.
Okay, yeah. Because, I mean, Livy definitely has... I think that my narrative, I think, is in a slightly different order to yours. So, I'm not sure exactly... I think my events are happening in a slightly different order to yours. But when Livy is talking about the year of those particular consuls, he does mention that, I guess because of all the problems that they're facing, because it's not just Veii, according to Livy, that they're having issues with at that time. It's also like the Volscii and that sort of thing. That the city itself is definitely suffering from a want of resources.
Yeah, so
there's like some scarcity issues happening. I'm presuming that means with food.
Yes, the old grain supply issue.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we have some particular concerns. So, like, at the end of the previous year, the Venetians have made a truce.
Yes.
Of sorts. And
of sorts. Is the word.
They've been sort of pushed to this point now that there's this fortress at Chimera, and they're sort of feeling under the pump, and they're sort of like, peace, let's have some peace. Their camp got raided and all of that sort of stuff. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, the Romans went glamping.
So they're like, ooh, guys, you have some nice camps. So the Venetians have sort of made this truce, but they're feeling a lot of pressure now, it would seem, from the northern Tyrrhenian peoples. Yeah. And they're like, what are you doing? You need to break this truce.
Yeah, and I think that's why they flip-flop. they take it back.
So it doesn't take very long for this sort of flip-flopping to happen, for Rome to become aware of it, being like, oh wait, we've got this we thought we had a truce here.
Yeah.
But we've got this trouble with the Volscii arising again in the southeast.
Yes.
Now we're going to have to fight a war on two fronts.
Yes, absolutely. Which I think would be definitely pushing them to the brink at this point in time, given how, it's just non-stop warfare, really, with them. And if it's not outside the city, it's inside the city with their own people. So,
yes.
It's no surprise that at some point people are like, grain.
You know what, guys? I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Who planted the seeds?
Yeah, who's been farming?
I haven't had time to farm. Have you had time to farm?
Exactly.
I've been busy in the army.
And this has kind of always been the plebeian point. That they need time to do these things if people want to eat.
Yeah, so this leads to a whole bunch of issues, and it seems, as far as Dionysius is concerned, like the grain comes later.
Okay.
And the main issue that he raises is that while Menenius is getting his army together to go north, because Horatius is going to take his army to the south to deal with the Volscii.
Sure, yeah.
Because the Veientians have flip-flopped on the old truce, the fortress at Crumera has been destroyed before the Roman army is able to get there to support the Fabians.
And now we come to the great tragedy of our episode, listeners. The fall of the fabulous Fabii.
Fabulous no longer.
No. This is a pretty important event in early Roman history. Like, we talked before about how it can be a bit wishy-washy sometimes because, it's... the records are a little scarce and we can't always be 100% certain about dating and whether this stuff actually happened or happens the way our sources say because they're writing so much later. But this does seem to be something that I feel certain something happened with this family.
This is a disaster on an epic scale.
It is, yeah.
And this is, again, almost being completely wiped out as far as our source material is concerned.
And this is why you don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you put all your little Fabians in a wicker basket and go la 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 out into the Venetian territory, and then they all get wiped out, well, then there's no more Fabians.
So this is a huge problem. Rome has only just discovered fortresses, but they clearly don't know how to do them yet. And the Fabians really pay the price.
Well, see, okay, Livy does, I think, try to excuse what happened a little bit because he has been building the Fabii up to be like, oh my god, they're so amazing that they actually put their money where their mouth is and they paid for this war and
then they died.
They left Rome. They left Rome, guys. Absolutely, they went out like lions. Oh my god, he's been talking like this for a while about the Fabians. And the way he's been building up in his narrative is he's been trying to say that they've been getting overconfident, and we always know in classical stories of any kind, myth or history, that being overconfident, committing the sin of hubris, is always a bad sign, and somehow you're going to be brought down to earth crashing. And so in Livy's account, the Fabii are having sort of skirmish type encounters with the people of Veii, and with each one they're getting more and more confident in their own abilities. And so the Venetians are noticing this. Like, at first they were a bit embarrassed because, they seem to be losing. But then they notice that the Fabii are getting more and more confident, and so they hatch an evil plan.
It's
been so long since I've been able to do that. So basically, their troops pretend to be scared. So whenever they're out, out and about doing what troops do, marching around, and they see the Fabii, they go ah! And hide behind bushes and that kind of stuff. And the Fabii are like, yeah, that's right, you better run. We are such mighty men.
Look at how they run from us.
Yeah, exactly. They also start, because while the Fabii are out and about, they're also probably raiding. So they're on the lookout for things that they can obviously take back, things like cattle, And so the people of Veii start to deliberately put cattle in their way.
Ooh.
Yeah, so the Romans are
how deceptive.
I know. The Romans are like, beef.
I am hungry and the corn supply has not come through.
Yeah, exactly. So it's by accident, and I'm using my flesh rabbits, which is super appropriate for a podcast. Yeah, and so basically the Fabii start to feel completely invincible. And this is, of course, where Livy
this is a huge setup.
The boom. Is that the same kind of setup that Dionysius has in his...
Relatively.
Okay,
yeah. So he gives a couple of accounts. Dionysius has a historiographical moment where he's like, I'm going to tell you the less plausible account that I've come across, and then what I think is the most plausible account.
Interesting, okay.
And the less plausible one is all about bad omens, inappropriate sacrifices, the Fabii not sending enough people to Rome to conduct the appropriate familial sacrifices.
Oh, I was about to say, surely Rome should be sending people to the Fabii.
No. The Fabii are supposed to be sending a delegation back to Rome to complete their sacred duty in the city. And and apparently they haven't done that well enough, and because all of them are in the fortress, so nobody's gone back. And this means that in the eyes of the gods, they're obviously going to fail.
That's actually kind of interesting that you bring that up. And I mean, you would know more about this than I would in terms of your religious background. As in, that's what she studies, not like she is a pagan. But,
although that would be cool.
I presume that would be partly, as you say, familial things relating to worship of maybe deities of their household or something like that. But is that also because at this point in time we are still looking at a situation where the elite of Rome are also, like, they're not just the political elite, they're also probably the religious elite?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a combination of both, I think.
Yeah.
Like, these things are very blurred.
Yes.
We see that they're blurred later in the history, but we know even less about how they are sort of situated in the early period. So I think they're even more blurred, perhaps.
Yeah.
But you've got, for Romans, it seems in many cases that deities are tied really specifically to location.
Right, okay.
So if you have a family god or a legacy of looking after a particular cult as a patrician family, you've got to go to the god. The god's not coming to you.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be enough to, like, get down and do the sacrifice.
God, won't travel.
Yeah. I'll do some things, but I won't do that.
Yeah.
I'll do anything for love.
Yeah. But I won't do that.
So, those sorts of moments where the god's like, I'm in Rome.
Yeah.
And if you want anything from me, you're going to have to come.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Cool.
And so, but Dionysius sort of writes this off as probably being the less probable of the two accounts.
Yeah.
He doesn't think it's so tied up in the gods so much as he thinks it's tied up in the Venetians' tactics, which are similar to the ones that you've just described.
I wonder if that's because... Sorry, I'm going off a tangent again. Dr. G is valiantly trying to press ahead with her narrative, and here I am wondering about religious issues. Do you think... Is that because, even though I know we've talked about how, all of the Fabians, as in, the family members, the clients, they're all out there, but do you think that they would have left behind children and women from their family in the city, and that potentially, like, male children could help them to carry out?
Yeah, well, and this is one of the reasons that Dionysius has for dismissing some of these claims.
Yeah.
Because the other part of this story is that the Fabii are completely wiped out in this event. He's
spoilers.
But that's just not, it can't be true.
No.
Because we have later Fabii.
Yeah, well, see, really interestingly, sorry, again, tangent. I was looking into some of the other sources around this particular event of the Fabii being wiped out. And the first native Roman historian is called Fabius Pictor. So, interesting.
Could we have a Fabian legacy?
Well, and this is the thing, like, they, I think I mentioned on the website, I've been looking at this collection of sources by Jacqueline Neal, and she mentions that this is possibly, a bit of sort of family law that's been incorporated into the official city history for obvious purposes to make out, my ancestors were so heroic. But, yeah, obviously not
You're
all.
saying that Fabius Pictor is a nobody and he just took that name when he published the book?
No. I mean, like, as in, he would know the story of what his ancestors did, and he might have helped to work it in, or at some point, someone prominent in the Fabian clan, because they're obviously always fairly, patrician and well known.
Yeah.
Somewhere at some point in time, like, this bit of family history has been worked into, like, the official history of Rome as being...
They got themselves in there, and now they're wedged in there, and we can't not deal with them.
Well, the other really interesting thing to know, which I hadn't thought about before, apparently, that like the wiping out of the Fabian clan, it becomes obviously like this dark day in Rome, and it's also meant to foreshadow this big loss that Rome suffers in we think around 390, when they face off against the Gauls, like the famous sack of Rome that happens early in the next century, and that it apparently could potentially be like an etiological sort of myth in a sense, that the Fabii are destroyed on the same day that the Romans lose this battle against the Gauls at the Alia.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Isn't it?
So,
Yeah.
so I'm going to run some dates past you now.
Okay.
And
Don't dazzle me too much.
only because I'm interested in whether any of these dates line up with the sack that you're talking about.
Okay.
So we've got the date of the Battle of Crumera, which is now considered nefas. So you can't you can't do business.
Yeah.
And this is sort of a recognition of the loss of the Fabii and the nature of the defeat.
I think that's what we mean when we say like a dark day. The Romans like public holiday.
Nobody do any business.
I guess it's a little similar to Anzac Day, which as recording this we've just had.
Indeed.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
I'd go down that path, but I feel like that's into very dangerous territory.
Yeah.
So this date of the Battle of Crumera is listed as a couple of different dates depending on the source.
Yeah.
It's the 18th of July according to Livy, Plutarch, and Tacitus.
Yeah.
So it all seems to tee up very nicely.
Yeah.
And then sticking out like a bit of a sore thumb, the 13th of February is provided by Ovid. So Ovid doesn't acquit himself well here. I was like, why do you disagree with everybody, buddy?
Yeah, I feel like I'd be more likely... I don't think I would trust Ovid first. I mean, he's just writing so much later. I mean, not...
Well,
I suppose he's not writing later than...
I mean, he's writing around the same time as Livy, and Plutarch and Tacitus are coming even later.
That's true. What am I talking about?
But when you have three of them that agree, and one of them's Tacitus, and you're like, oh...
Sorry. What I should say is, Ovid is not, strictly speaking, a historian. Not that means... a lot in terms of...
Look at this poet trying to do a fasty.
I know. I mean, like, it's silly. It's a silly distinction to make because we've just been talking about how much Livy and Dionysius are writing a story and a narrative and building up heroes and plot lines and all that kind of stuff. It's a silly distinction to make, but at the end of the day, I kind of feel like, oh, look, you know what? I'm being biased because I know other stuff that Ovid writes. I know that he writes about, like, pickup manuals. And sexy times. So I'm being biased.
I mean, he's got a track record to deal with.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But that's just my personal point of view.
Yeah. All right. I feel like we've like gone really tangential now.
Sorry. Yeah, I really have. I've totally derailed you. Apologies.
No, I don't think you did. We've done this together.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the Fabii.
Fabii, yeah. So that narrative that Livy is providing about the
distraction.
People of Veii and the Tyrrhenians sort of providing these distractions.
Yeah.
It all sort of builds up. And so they keep doing this and drawing the Fabii further and further away from the fortress.
Precisely.
And this allows them to sort of pick them off when they decide to turn around and actually attack.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Romans are not prepared for this.
No.
The Fabii scatter and they're basically killed on the spot. And the ones who have been left holding the fortress, because there is a nominal force left behind, they set out to try and provide aid. And they're like, this is a disaster.
Yeah.
We've got to leave the fortress. Bad move.
Not realizing that's kind of what the fortress is for. To keep you safe. Yeah.
And before they can get like too far around that, the Tyrrhenians surround them.
Yeah.
And everybody's basically cut to pieces.
Yeah. That's very similar to how Livy paints it in the end. Basically, the Fabii see cattle at a distance, and because they've been building up the confidence to, go and get what they see, and further and further away, they go after the cattle, and then they see like some of the enemy troops, just like a few, and so they think, oh, we'll also pick those guys up while we're at it. Burgers and and killing.
I see some great lettuce. This is be delicious.
So they basically just don't pay attention to what else is happening around them. They don't pay attention to their surroundings. Mistake. And they run to seize these things, and the people, the forces of Veii surround them. I think it almost sounds in Livy's account like they're almost in like a bit of a bottleneck at some point.
Well, some of them seem to end up retreating. The ones that survive all of this stuff that's happened so far do retreat, it seems, back to the fortress.
Right, yeah.
And then the Tyrrhenians just start to pick them off with long-range attacks.
Right, okay. Yeah, maybe that's what he's talking about. Because, it seems almost in Livy's account like they end up going down a particular, like, a road where they can be picked off on either side because they haven't paid attention, and it's very difficult to extricate yourself,
Dionysius gives some, like, real colour to this kind of thing as well.
Oh, I know he does.
Yeah. The people are hacked to pieces. Men were bled white and overwhelmed by missiles. Yeah. Their limbs paralysed by reason of the multitude of their wounds. Oh. The Tyrrhenians scorned them and came to close quarters.
Not scorn.
Yeah, I think that's retribution for the attack of the glamp.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Romans sort of turn into wild beasts in an attempt to survive. And they body wrestle with the Tyrrhenians where they can and try to grab the swords out of their hands. But it doesn't do any good. They're pretty much destroyed.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happens with Livy. That the more they try and sort of retreat or get into another position, the more the forces of Veii can just, they come out of nowhere. They keep multiplying. They could just keep picking them off. They've obviously got their strategy down in terms of what they're going to do to these people once they, get a hold of them. And it's really interesting because we mentioned, I think previously, that there's this legendary number associated with this destruction, which is the 306 Fabii. So it's not a story of individual heroism like we have looked at before, like with the Horatius and that sort of thing. See previous episode. It is like this story of like the sacrifice of a whole family. But the 306 that we've talked about, that's not everyone that would have been fighting with them.
Dionysius lists this number as well. It seems to be like the canonical number of the Fabii lost. Yeah. And when he provides this detail, he's also like, this is really quite improbable that this is all of the Fabii.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, it's just not possible that all of the Fabii went out, and that all the men were unmarried and childless. So the implication seems to be that the wives and children were probably still in Rome.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, which makes sense. Which makes sense. Yeah. Exactly. Why would you take your kids?
No, don't take your children to a fortress.
We're all going on a summer holiday.
Yeah. You need to see warfare up close, my young son.
Yeah, and to have also, I mean, in the Roman version of things, women around, like particularly like patrician women, then it's not like they're cooking and cleaning for you. I mean, yes, okay, at this point in time, maybe they are, but
they would complain about that.
You could just easily get slaves to do it. Like, you're patricians. Like, what are you doing?
It seems very unlikely that every single Fabii is in this fortress of all ages. And even if this number, this 306, is referring to the men specifically, surely they don't have the young boys there.
No.
There are going to be some male children at the very least to carry on the Fabii line.
Yeah. And look, Livy tries to salvage it because obviously he does like this family in this story. And so towards the end of his particular story, he talks about how there is like a little group left, after the initial attacks and retreats and that kind of stuff. And he says that because they had managed to secure like some favorable ground, this little band actually might have been able to win and like fight off their attackers, if not for the fact that the Vaetians managed to send a little force around like this high ground that they had taken, and once again become superior in numbers and position. And this is where Livy says, so unfortunately the Fabii were cut off to a man, their fort was captured, and the legend according to Livy is that only one single person, a youth, was left alive, and he is the one that passes on, like the genes. He's the one who gets to run away and tell the tale and spread the seed, and he's the reason why there are still Fabians around. That's Livy's version of things. The one survivor.
The sole survivor.
Yeah.
I thought when you were going to say that there was a little pocket holding out that, like, the thing that brought them down was the fact that they saw a cow off in the distance. They're like, yes, we can eat.
No, we never did get those burgers.
I'm still hungry.
No. I think it's just that in Livy's account, I feel like he's trying to say, like, because he's been building it up before as the Fabii are amazing, one family managing to defeat an entire city. Like, he's said that kind of stuff before, and so I think he's trying to
salvage something
soften
from this.
the blow. Yeah, exactly.
I love these guys. One survives.
Yeah. But the number I find really interesting because it has been raised by other historians that this is a little bit of massaging of the historical narrative, and that this is somehow meant to sound similar to the famous stand of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae.
Well, that's quite curious, but why not just call it the 300 Fabii?
Well, precisely.
Where does the other 6 come from?
I agree. I don't think it fits that particular thing. Like, it happens sometimes where they do try and alter the numbers a little bit so that it recalls other famous events, you know, and like, as we talked about before, numbers are notoriously unreliable, but 306 is so precise. Why not just say 300?
Yeah, and I think that's what speaks in its favor, really, because most of the time when they're quoting numbers, they just give you a general figure, like there were 10,000 men. You're like, wow, that's a lot of men.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, how many was it really? And the fact that it's 306, and I was like, why not 303 or 301?
Absolutely.
Now I have so many questions.
I think it's because of, like, there are certain similarities, and like obviously the number is similar, but it's also the fact that you're meant to have, I mean, you know, the 300 Spartans, it wasn't just 300 Spartans either, as we know. Yeah, they were also backed up by other people.
Picks jar off the table.
I know. The Thebans and the Thespians, like, we know that there were other people there, but it's the 300 Spartans that are, you know, remembered. They were meant to be defending, you know, a narrow pass. They are betrayed. Like, they don't lose. They stand their ground to the end, you know, and there's one survivor to tell the story, and, you know, that, like, there are similarities. I can see the similarities, and it is obviously a similar heroic table. I agree that it doesn't seem to be a straight transfer. Like, it might just be that there are similarities. I mean, hello, military tactics would say that the easiest way to defeat a force is to get them stuck in, like, some sort of narrow
and then chop them to
pick
pieces.
Them off. Yeah, exactly. So it's probably just that's just smart military strategy. But I just thought it was interesting to note.
It's definitely curious, and I suppose I'd want to give more credit to it if somebody like Dionysius had made the parallel more explicit. Being like, you know, this is like that time, and like make it something that a Greek reader can hold on to. Yeah. Because he does this all the time with dates and stuff.
Well, yeah, Dionysius is kind of the person you'd expect to make that link, being a Greek source, unlike Livy. You would think he'd have more interest in saying, you know, this puts me in mind of a famous episode from Greek history.
That reminds me. Yeah, and it's like, surely you'll recall. But he doesn't, and I find that curious as well. Yeah. So after this moment of this devastating loss of what appears to be almost the entire gens of the Fabii, we're left with a bit of a difficult situation for Menenius, the consul, who's supposed to be heading north with an army in support, and doesn't get there.
Oh, okay. What does Menenius do? Does he have a story about a body and, like, arms and legs?
He talks a lot about his stomach. Yeah. No, he talks about how hungry he is. Yeah. See that cow over there?
Those cows. Yeah.
Plebs, I want you to get it for me. You're the limbs here. No, but Dionysius does position him as a relatively weak character.
Yeah, I get... Look, Livy, as usual, does not provide me with a lot of detail, but it's not good. What he does say is not good, so I'll let you tell me a little more detailed version. But it seems to me that Menenius encounters the northern forces, the Etruscans, or whatever you want to call them, who are of course on a total high because they've just cut the Fabians to pieces, and that he loses. And, yeah. And that because he loses, these people get freaking close to Rome. Like, they start. I won't get too far ahead of myself, but that's kind of where I'm heading.
Yeah, this is all on the cards in Dionysius as well. Yeah. So he sort of suggests that Menenius has taken the slow road to get to the north.
I see.
Because he's jealous. I'm
winking at Dr. G. You can't see me, guys, but I am.
A bit jealous of the Fabii and their reputation for valor. So he's going to take his time getting there.
But he's from the the Fable family, the ones that tell the story.
Yeah, but he hasn't. No, it doesn't mean he's not a rival.
Yeah.
Patrician families are trying to outdo each other here.
Yes.
And he's like, I'm just going to take my sweet time heading north, not realizing like the devastation that is taking place, and that if he had hurried and maybe or even gone at normal pace, he could have helped out and supported.
But would it, Dr. G? Would it? I mean, the cows.
I don't know. The cows. Damn you, cows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But when he gets there, it's pretty clear what has happened, and it's devastating.
Yeah.
And the Tyrrhenians now have the fortified upper position.
Oh, yeah.
In the foothills.
Yeah, they've captured the fortress.
So this is a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
And he's not able to choose the time or the place of combat for engagement. Never a good sign. A Roman general always likes to choose.
Indeed.
Even worse, Dionysius suggests that he scorns all of the advice that the other generals who have come along, the subordinate generals, are giving him about how to go about this.
See? Hubris.
Oh, yeah. So, not on the back of this, like, devastating loss and the low morale that's at play here. Menenius is taking the hard line, being like, I'm doing it my way, and you're all going to do it with me. And
regrets, I have a few.
Oh boy, does that go badly.
Yeah.
The Tyrrhenians come down from their fortified great position.
I don't want to hear.
Their numbers are twice as large as the Roman forces.
Yep.
There is a great slaughter of Romans.
Okay.
The Romans are unable to hold rank and position. Most of the prominent centurions are killed. The rest of the Romans give way. The Romans are chased, and then they're slightly besieged in their camp. They run back.
Slightly besieged.
Yeah, because they run back to one of their previous camps.
Right.
They're besieged at their camp.
Yeah.
The Tyrrhenians then capture that camp.
Right.
The Romans have to run away again.
Run away! Run away!
They keep running. Boy, do they keep running. They run so far. And when you say they get close to Rome, boy, do they get close to Rome. They run all the way back to...
The Janiculum?
The Janiculum.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah. And so if you've been to Rome, please just go there. Yeah. But if you haven't been, so the Janiculum is this hill which is on the west side of the Tiber. So most of Rome proper is on the east side of the river. But when you're on the Janiculum, you've got this great view down to everything to do with the city.
Yeah, and it's now, like, part of the city, pretty much.
It is now part of the city. It's just like sort of like on the top of Trastevere.
Yeah.
And so like we're talking like literally very close to things. Like you can walk very easily.
Yeah.
From the Janiculum into the city.
Just give you an idea of the scale.
Oh yeah, we're very close.
Yeah.
And the Tyrrhenians are like, hello. We are so close.
Oh, God.
The Romans are all in confusion. They're very frustrated. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and this is where we come back to where I started from, basically, where Livy is talking in my account about how, not only are they dealing with war and conflict, but, they're hungry, I think.
Everybody's hungry.
Yeah, exactly.
Except maybe the Tyrrhenians.
Well,
they seem to be doing all right.
Yeah, they've got all those cows.
Rome has been in a cycle of almost continuous warfare for I don't know how long. I'm tired, and we've just been talking about it.
When do we get to talk about fashion and culture? When?
Come on, source material, help me out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When is Rome going to have its pop star convention? Never.
The MTV Awards.
Yeah, look. So, I mean, we're in some dark times, and Rome's been in them for a while, but this is particularly bad. So the people in the city can see the enemy forces on the Janiculum.
That's not good. Yeah.
Yeah, not good at all. And they're all like, we got to prepare.
I think they're girding their loins in my account and expecting to be basically under siege.
Yeah. And the Tyrrhenians start to take their time at this point. This is where the tables start to turn. Wait for it. So the Tyrrhenians feeling quite confident that they could take Rome anytime they like.
Yeah.
And they're like, look at those guys, they're very concerned. They fall into their old habits of enjoying a little bit too much glamour and
fashion. Glamping.
And they start to like, let's just do some raids for the nice stuff in the surrounding area.
Yeah, foolish
let's
people.
just collect some booty. Like
shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake your booty. Yeah.
They're like, let's collect treasure.
Yeah.
And so they spend a lot of time collecting treasure. The Romans are like, wait a minute, they're collecting treasure and not attacking us. Mobilize. And Dionysius describes this as the Tyrrhenians depriving themselves of the great opportunity for boasting.
For boasting.
Yeah, because they lose the opportunity to boast of taking Rome.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
Because they don't move swiftly. They get distracted by shiny things.
Yeah. Classic mistake.
Classic Tyrrhenian mistake.
This is why the Romans are so austere.
Yes, so
they
you
don't
can
make these mistakes.
You can see how the stereotypes are feeding very much into this narrative.
Very much.
Those Northerners, they like treasure.
You gotta love a bit of ethnic stereotyping.
Yeah. Well, Romans, on the other hand, scorn treasure.
Yeah.
And only take it so they can give it to the gods.
That's right.
And to also fund more armies.
Yeah, exactly. Melt it down. Melt it all down.
Yeah, and it's at this point that Horatius, our second consul, who'd been heading towards the Volscii,
he gets recalled.
Yeah, he's heard the message and turns around and comes back. And you're like, wait a minute, the city.
Nice move.
He appears.
Yeah.
And they take the field together.
Nice.
Yeah, look, it's a difficult time, and it sort of ends. Dionysius ends this year as sort of like, you know, there is this sort of a clash about to take place, and the Romans think they're safe and take the field, and they fight and everything, and they overcome the Tyrrhenians.
Yes.
In this last little moment, drive them back.
Yeah, this is my viewpoint as well.
Yeah, get them up against one of the gates, and the Tyrrhenians decide to recover north.
Yeah. This is basically what Livy gives me as well. He says that there's an initial engagement near the Temple of Hope, which I kind of feel like is meant to be symbolic.
Yes.
Yeah, and he says nothing massive happens, but like obviously the Romans aren't giving way, which is kind of the crucial thing to do when you've got the enemy at the gate. And then they have a second engagement at the Colline Gate, and this is where the Romans. He doesn't play it up for once. He's not like, the Romans carry all before them. He does say, look, the Romans just secure a little bit of an advantage, enough so that their morale is restored. And this, I think, seems to be, you know, for Livy, the turning point. And I guess that's what makes the other side go,
I think it's time to go home with our treasure.
You know what? I'm tired. And there are still those cows. Let's get back. Burgers on the house tonight.
Yeah, it's all very strange. And so clearly the focus of this narrative in this year is definitely the loss of the Fabii.
Yes.
You know, that's the central
It's the big
point.
tragedy, yeah.
And even though the Tyrrhenians get as far as Rome itself, they manage to be pushed back, and so it's less of a victory, and it's more of a saving of the city in dire circumstances, but it's not really a great moment for Rome, because the enemy has come far too close.
I mean, I've honestly been waiting for this episode for a while, just because it is such an iconic, you know, story, like the Fabians being cut to pieces and the whole family being wiped out.
That's the end until the next one comes along.
Exactly. Until the children grow up and get married and have families.
All of a sudden.
But until then, no Fabians.
Just none.
Just none.
Forget the women.
Yeah, no.
They're not Fabians.
No.
We're not going to count them at all.
No.
They're all gone.
Forget it.
All of them.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's probably a good place to pause for today, perhaps, I think, with the rather sad but still like the glimmer of hope.
The tragedy of the loss of the Fabii. They shone brightly for a good, almost 10 years there.
Shine bright like a diamond. Very musical today.
Yeah. I even tried to sing, which is definitely not my skill.
I think that's what's set me up. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. All right, well, Dr. G, I think that means that it is time for... the partial pick, and I've been disorganized today, and I don't have my sound.
Oh, but I can put in the sound later.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Nice. All right, so what is our first category off the bat?
Ooh, the partial pick.
Yeah.
Out of 10 eagles for military clout.
Military clout. Well, I feel like this is not good. I mean, it's not... Not as bad as it could have been.
There was the redemption at the end, but that's still a loss in many respects. I'm giving them maybe one.
I was going to say, I feel like it has to be one, because basically they just haven't been annihilated.
Well, and when you lose a whole gens, like, come on, Rome.
Well, I mean, and the fact is, like, if they hadn't managed to pull it together at the very last minute, like, this story would have been very different. We probably would have been telling the story of the history of the Venetian Empire or whatever. Like,
this is a moment.
This is a moment. This is a moment.
Big moment.
Yeah, so it has to be one. Definitely one. Okay, cool.
The next category is diplomacy.
Also bad. Well, I mean, like, I suppose it's only bad because we're not really seeing...
I don't think they did any.
No,
so
no,
that's
exactly,
like,
yeah.
That's no Eagles.
To be fair, neither did the people of Veii.
Did the Tyrrhenians help? They certainly did not.
No, okay, so we're on one, yeah.
Expansion.
Oh, no. It's got to be a 0 as well.
Oh, this could be the lowest score
this
ever.
Could be. Well, you know, I think that's how the Romans would have wanted it. Yeah.
Virtus. Yeah, look, I'm not seeing a lot of Virtus. I mean, Menenius doesn't come out very well in this narrative.
No, I mean...
We don't even have any standout Fabii who make it as individuals in this narrative of destruction, like, you know, the valiant fought so-and-so.
Even my sole survivor in Livy, like, it's clear...
Unnamed.
Well, unnamed. It's clearly just the fact that he's meant to be, obviously, I would say, by our standards, a teenager. And I'd say that, it was meant to be one of those things where they're like, you, go home, tell them what has happened here.
Run, young
Preserve
sire.
our story. And that's it. It's nothing. Yeah, there's no heroic exploits. I think he just runs.
And he has to be young because they take the toga of manhood at around about 14, 15.
Well, that's the thing.
It's going to be like maybe 12.
He says a youth. Yeah. So, you know.
It's so young.
Yeah.
He should never have been in that fortress. He's going to be traumatized.
Well, but then on the other hand, you know, he gets to, presumably, have a lot of sex.
Be the Fabian.
He needs to spread the seed. Okay, yeah, so I think 0? I don't know. Like,
I think 0.
I mean, to be fair, and this is something I didn't raise earlier, Dr. G, but definitely when you get to someone like Ovid, he's definitely playing up the whole evil Veii and their treacherous tactics, and, you know, he's trying his best because he seems to have been friends with one of the Fabian clan of his own
Classic
Roman historiography. So yeah, I suppose there is like an element of like heroic tragedy, but I don't know if that counts as Virtus. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No, okay, 0.
Nah.
I did my best for you, Fabians.
Not buying it.
No. Okay, so it's nothing.
And the citizen score.
Well, I think it's pretty poor. I think the citizens are freaking starving.
Regardless of whether you're in an army that's been pushed north or pushed south and then had to turn around to save your own city, or whether you're somebody who happens to be in Rome, has just been screaming, being like, I can see the enemy.
Well, yeah, and also on top of that, lack of
grain.
food.
Yeah, the lack of grain right now.
I think it's freaking
palpable.
nothing. I mean, I don't know. Do we want to give them 1 because the city isn't taken? Or is that... but I feel it's pretty bad.
Yeah, look, I feel like there would have to be some reason, a positive reason for being a citizen right now, and I'm really not seeing one for them. I feel like it's unjustified.
Wow, so that gives us a grand total of 1 out of 50. Golden Eagles. Oh, the glory of Rome.
Oh, Rome.
Yeah.
The shame of it all.
But you know what? I knew that this was going to be like that. Like, I knew that's how this episode was going to be, because, I mean, how can you spin the loss of an entire gens? You just can't.
Yeah, you can't spin that very well.
So, Rome, I feel like it's only up from here.
Next time, let's go for 5.
Yeah. Let's just get over the 5. That would be great. All right, well, tune in next time and see if Rome can redeem itself in any way.
Until next time.